I will jump in quickly and introduce Dr. Muglia. I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. Mike Muglia is Assistant Director of Science and Research for the North Carolina Ocean Energy Program and an Assistant Research Professor at the East Carolina University Coastal Studies Institute. One of his many scientific interests includes applying his oceanographic, wow, I'm sorry about that. I can't, I'm losing my words, knowledge to developing renewable ocean energy solutions. He has a bachelor's degree in marine science, biology and physics, and a master's degree in physics and a PhD in marine science from UNC Chapel Hill. Welcome.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate it. And it's an honor to be here and talk to everybody. I've been giving that interesting question a little bit more thought. So if we have time, I'll address it again, hopefully at the end here. But I'd like to talk about the wild, wild western boundary current, which is the Gulf Stream. And a lot of my research involves the Gulf Stream and basically making oceanic observations. So I'll talk about some of those observations that we make of both the Gulf Stream current and of waves as well. Whoops. So I always like to start talking about the Gulf Stream and try to impress upon my audience. It's difficult over the computer. What a magnificent place it is to work. So it really is magical. I think it's the exception that I actually go out on the Gulf Stream and work and don't see something that's astounding. And so I start with this picture of the Gulf Stream in the wintertime. And this is what's called sea smoke. And it's not actually smoke at all, but the water vapor from the Gulf Stream. And this is caused by the extreme temperature difference between the water in the Gulf Stream, which tends to be 76 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air in this case is 30 or 40 degrees.
Mike, do you mind? We can't see that slide. If you'll put it, if you'll advance from your title, that'd be great.
Oh, really? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We have technical difficulties. What do you see now?
We can see your title slide is the main slide, and then we can see the side slides as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm in trouble here. Let me try this again.
I think if you can always just move your thing down. It's okay if we're not in the right view.
Oh, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I'm sorry about that, everybody.
I think you might be sharing the right screen, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't even see the tab for stopping and starting sharing again now.
Or there's even just, you can try present mode, or maybe, yeah, I guess you thought you were in present mode.
I am in present mode, or
Yeah.
I was. Let's see.
I can, I'll stop your sharing and you can try again.
All right. I'll try something different. Let's see. I'll just share. Oh boy, it's not giving me the option that I hoped for. I can't just share a monitor for some reason. That's unfortunate. I've never had this problem with Zoom before. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I don't know if you want to go back and just change the slide with your cursor. Maybe we can at least, see.
Yeah, it might be kind of small is my concern, but
yeah.
Well, so now you see.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you do see the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, so this
we
is.
see the image.
Hopefully it will change next time that I want it to, but yes, this is this enormous amount of heat flux, right? And so it's like being able to go from especially in the wintertime, on land within a couple of hours offshore, you go from a cold winter environment to a more tropical environment. So this extreme difference causes extreme weather, and the Gulf Stream is influencing the weather. And so what you see here is the Gulf Stream kind of creating its own atmospheric climate. And because the current is so fast, the wave environment there tends to be very different. And what's amazing is that the change from what we experience on our way out to this is over about the distance of a football field. So it's very abrupt, and it's kind of just a very special place to be. So hopefully, there we go. Did that change? What are you looking at?
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. All right. So one reason that Cape Hatteras is such a fascinating place to work, I like to call it the Mason-Dixon line of East Coast oceanography. If you look at this little box in the top left, there is an enormous confluence of all these different currents right off of Cape Hatteras where we work. And so we have the Gulf Stream offshore. We have what we call the slope sea gyre. Can you all see my mouse? This persistent recirculation here. And then we have the deep western boundary current, which starts in the North Atlantic and basically passes beneath the Gulf Stream right off of Cape Hatteras. And then if we look at this cartoon over to the right, or zoomed in a little bit, the shelf water to the north, what we call the mid-Atlantic bight shelf water, tends to be relatively fresh and cool. And on average, it's moving from north to south. The South Atlantic bight water from the south tends to be salty and warm, and on average it's moving to the north, and this creates a front that we call the Hatteras front, much like a weather front you'll see on a weather map on the news. These are different densities, these water masses, and they don't readily mix. So we have this big confluence here, and the water has to go somewhere. It tends to go offshore, and it can get entrained in the Gulf Stream. So this is unique in that water likes to follow the same isobath or equal depth. And so this is a place where we have this link between the near shore and the deep ocean environment. And so for things like carbon sequestration and nutrient transport, it's a very important area. So how do we look at that as scientists? So my group works with lots of other groups from up and down the East Coast, and we make lots of observations. And so I'm showing a map down here in the bottom right of several of the observations we're making in the present and some that we've made in the past. And I'll point out Jeanette's Pier is this little orange line off of Nag's Head. That's our wave energy test facility. And offshore of that, we have this circle, which is one of our wave rider buoys. It's about 26 meters deep, maybe 10 miles offshore, where we measure full directional wave spectra. We use that for a lot of the wave energy converter tests that we do at Nag's Head. We have several of these buoys out. We will have one off of Pea Island, and we're getting ready to put another one off of Buxton, North Carolina. With the National Renewable Energy Labs. We put lots of instruments on the bottom. These are acoustic Doppler current profilers, these little triangles that measure current over nearly the whole water column. And then we fly gliders, which are these paths of kind of things moving around with these cyan lines. And we actually make vessel transects across the Gulf Stream in several different places. And so all this stuff is a lot to keep up with. We just installed a coastal ocean radar, which I'll talk a little bit more about here on the next slide, that measures ocean surface currents. We installed one over the weekend in Ocracoke. And while we were doing that, one of our little wave measuring buoys at Jeanette's Pier broke free. And I got an alert while we were having dinner that it was free. And luckily my technician was heading to meet us in Ocracoke, and he stopped and grabbed it off the beach on his way. So it is a very challenging environment. As Michael pointed out, testing is tricky, and it's something that we're getting ready to do here shortly with lots of colleagues. So what is the Gulf Stream like? So on the top left-hand side here, I'm showing a satellite sea surface temperature image of the Gulf Stream. It's these hot colors, and you can see that they're what we call meander waves along the edge of the Gulf Stream that are propagating along. This little black box here is the area where we tend to focus our attention for both scientific reasons and for energy reasons, because we think this is a location where the Gulf Stream varies in position least. And so if we're trying to get energy from the Gulf Stream, it's always flowing, but the tricky part is that it's not always flowing in the same place. And so we try to optimize our location selection so that we consistently get energy from the stream. And so while I'm at this point talking about the Gulf Stream, maybe we could have my questionnaire pop up and have people kind of consider how much water actually flows in the Gulf Stream while I'm talking about it. This is a cartoon of the Gulf Stream off of Cape Hatteras. So we have this very abrupt sea surface temperature, or SST front, that you can see in the satellite imagery. Again, that's the width of about a football field. So it's a very abrupt change and a large gradient. And we have the Gulf Stream here is about 1,000 meters deep. So 330 some feet off of 3,000, sorry, 3,000 and 3,000, about a little over 3,000 feet deep. And what I'm showing here are called isotachs. So we have that really fast flow of water near the surface. We call this the Gulf Stream jet, and it tends to move about 4 knots, sometimes a little bit more. So that's a really fast ocean current. And then that current speed dies off as we go deeper and deeper. And the Gulf Stream is what's called a baroclinic jet. So baroclinic means that we have a density gradient between the different water masses, and it's sloped. And so you have to be forcing, you have to have an input of some forcing to be able to keep that slope as it is, like in the Gulf Stream. And so the density surfaces in the Gulf Stream are much like where I have the isotachs. So it's almost like you have oil and water and you're pushing it down into the ocean like that. So, whoops, let's see here. So we use lots of different methods to measure the Gulf Stream. This is a measurement that we made by taking our vessel from CSI. I'm showing the track, and we're making a sea surface temperature measurement as we leave the backyard and go out through the inlet during the wintertime. And you can see that it's quite cold. It starts at about 20 degrees C. And then when we get out to the Gulf Stream, we have this very abrupt change where we get up to about 25 degrees. And you can see how abrupt that is. So it really influences what's going on with the weather when we get to that edge. And then we have some instruments called acoustic Doppler current profilers that look down beneath the boat and measure, they're kind of like fancy fish finders, and they measure the current velocity. And so this big ribbon that I'm showing here are the current velocity measurements from the vessel as we drive across the Gulf Stream. And so you can see these really hot colors are the really swift currents that I showed in that cartoon in the previous slide of the Gulf Stream velocity. So I mentioned that we just put a radar in Buxton. It's not even on this map yet, but what these radars do is they give us a really nice picture every hour of the ocean surface current. So on the left-hand side, you can see an image that we get from the actual radar measurements. And these are nice because they're remote sensing instruments. We don't have to maintain things in the ocean, at least. They're on the coast. But they give us a consistent and very long-term measurement of what the ocean currents are doing. And for my research, this is very important because they're the only way that I can look at Gulf Stream variability with such high frequency. So every hour, I get a picture of where the edge of the Gulf Stream is. And you can see that with your eye, between the hot colors, which are the swifter currents, and the cooler colors, like the greens, exactly where that edge is. So for our ocean energy program, that's very important. We'd like to know, if we invest millions of dollars to put a current turbine out there, that will be in a sweet spot to get ocean energy from the Gulf Stream. And when I say surface currents, these radars tend to measure about the top 2 to 3 meters of the water column. So it really is just kind of that surface layer. So a neat exercise that someone could do with these, because each individual radar measures what we call the radial surface current, or the component of the ocean velocity relative to each radar. This is just an exercise in your math or physics class of vector addition, right? So you could take components from 2 radars in one location here and adding them up. That's how we get the total surface current that I show in this picture. And so that's what we actually do. So you could tell your students, hey, you know, we're doing an exercise in vector addition today, and this is why you should care if you're going to go into oceanography. This is what's done every hour so that we can look at the Gulf Stream. And I think there's lots of good opportunities to do computer science. What I'm pointing out here on the left-hand side are the current measurements from a website called the Coastal Observing Research and Development Center for the United States coastline. And I'm pointing out that these data are served through what's called a thread server, and that this is a standard way of serving oceanographic data for many different data resources. So if we look on the right, we have measurements from one of our ocean buoys of what the wave height is. The HS is the significant wave height. And what I'm showing is a significant wave height over several days here. And then the peak period, or the time between wave crests that we're measuring on the buoy. And you notice I've highlighted in yellow that they're also served on a thread server. So a great exercise for a computer science student would be, develop a program to go out to some different thread servers and download some of this information. And the thread server allows you to kind of slice and dice the information so that you can say, well, I want a particular time, or I need a particular latitude and longitude, and I want to take that block of data and download it to my computer, which is what we do, right, when we're doing our research and doing analysis on some of the observations that we make. So here's a couple of examples of ocean energy devices that I'm currently involved with and working on from our program. The one on the left is called a tethered coaxial turbine. And I'm really interested in this one because as an oceanographer that does lots of work in the ocean, I think this is a realistic instrument to put in the ocean and maintain. It's not too hard to deploy a small version of this, and it's not too hard to get it back out of the water. And so this is a device that's being developed by a lead colleague of mine, Kenneth Cranlin, at North Carolina State University. And then on the right is an ocean kite that we're working to develop. And so this kite flies either a figure 8 or elliptical pattern. And what it does is it spools out under very high tension. So the generation of electricity is done on the winch, not on the kite itself. So it can spool out under very high tension, and then we can change the orientation of the kite to spool back in under low tension and generate electricity. And so this project is led by my colleague, Chris Vermillion at NC State University. And we currently are funded by the Department of Energy to get this kite to where we can do a tow test in Jordan Lake in Charlotte this fall. And we're also funded by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency to develop a larger rendition of this kite to power an underwater glider. And so these are exciting projects to be involved in. I'm certainly not leading them. I'm kind of the oceanographer lackey on them that's just informing the engineers about what they can expect to see when they actually put this thing in the ocean. And I'll certainly share this presentation for everyone. I think I'm showing lots of different links. So CSI itself has some terrific classroom activities that are ready for use right now. So does the Southeast Atlantic Coastal Ocean Observing Regional Association. Here's an example of one that I worked with them to develop. And then the links to the high frequency radar information and the thread server, that's here as well. Several of our wave observations, the links for the thread server for the data there are there too. And some more information about the Gulf Stream. And then if your students are interested in my research, I'd be happy to hear from them. That's my research page. And again, I'll share this with everyone as a resource. So I really appreciate your time. I really enjoyed talking with everyone today.
Thank you. And Mike, I don't think you could see the poll, but they did do the poll, and 60% of people said that the Gulf Stream transports about 30 times the flow of all the rivers on Earth combined. So is that the correct answer?
I can see the poll, and it's the correct answer. And so if you think about that much water flowing, we measure it in what's called sphere drips, which is a famous oceanographer's name, which it's about, it varies a little bit, but it's between, 40 and 60 sphere drips, which is millions of cubic meters of water per second. And yes, it is an enormous amount. And that's why it has such an influence on the local climate. And this is a picture of our research vessel offshore in the Gulf Stream. You can notice that the water is a very deep blue. So I guess I should address some of the questions. I have them here too. So I thought a little bit more about that question on whether energy is conserved and would this change the rotation of the Earth or the Moon? And so I guess it's a matter of scale, right? So theoretically, yes, if you were harvesting all the tidal energy on Earth, I guess you could theoretically slow the rotation of the Earth somewhat by doing that. But I think it's a scale question. So Not very likely, but it's a good point to make. I hope that person is still online. Are there volunteer opportunities? There are always volunteer opportunities. So I look forward to hearing from folks about that are interested. Let's see. In your work on the Gulf Stream, have you recognized evidence of the supposed? Yes. So I knew this question was coming. So my students just reviewed this article that came out in Nature, and it spawned some really good and some really bad articles. One of the good articles that you might look at is the one that came out in the New York Times. We have not seen that slowing. So it's not in our observations yet, especially in the jet. So the jet is still ripping right along. That study that spawned that was done with proxy measurement. So it wasn't a direct measurement of the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. The Gulf Stream is the upper limb of that, which brings warm water from south to north. And then the North Atlantic is a very special place where deep water is formed. It's one of two places on Earth where that happens. And so that's the water that's density driven and going back the other direction. So that overturning is thought to perhaps be slowing, and there may be some tipping point to that, almost like a very sudden change that we could experience in our lifetimes. And if that happens, then it would cause the climate to change quite abruptly. I have not seen that in our observations, but again, we don't really have long-term and consistent observations of the Gulf Stream over these time scales that we look at in terms of like glaciation and things like that. So it's possible, certainly. So does UNC Chapel Hill or the Coastal Studies Institute own the ship with all the instruments, or is this the awesome boat owned in conjunction with NOAA, for example? Well, yes. So the Coastal Studies Institute owns a 42-foot boat with the instruments that were used to make the measurements that I showed. We don't own the big Armstrong, but the boat that's in this picture is owned by the Coastal Studies Institute. And it's a pretty neat boat. The bigger boats that can do what this little boat do are not able to come in and out of our inlet, so they can't respond quickly to events that are happening off of Cape Hatteras. And so we get inquiries from some of the bigger oceanographic institutions about whether our boat is available for use because of that. I think it's definitely, it's I guess our research group's opus that we got the boat and developed it like that. We're very fond of it. How much energy from one tethered coaxial turbine? Well, it depends on scale. So I don't think we're quite there yet. Right now, this thing exists like something you could hold in your palm. And because it's so small, I'm very eager to put it in the ocean and test it because it's not too hard to do. And I guess you could scale up from there. So something changed. I guess stop sharing. That's good. Is it time to re-ask Philip's question? Give me more.
Oh, you answered that. That was the question you answered.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I hope we still have a number of teachers with us, and I know it's 5:45, so if you need to leave, feel free. But if there are any final questions for our presenters, feel free to enter them into the Q&A or the chat. You can also unmute yourself or ask to be unmuted, and you can ask live. But again, a final round of applause for everyone. Thanks for the presentations. I think that everyone should have gotten something, out of this that they can take back to their students, to inspire their students. And Michael Atkinson, I think it'd be great if we could get your students maybe in a webinar or something to inspire. They always love hearing from undergrads and graduate students. So that it'd be great if maybe we could do a follow-up related to that.
Sure, reach out to me and we can discuss that. Sure.
That would be great.